Ghāyat al Ḥakīm, or the Picatrix. Welcome. My vlog on the son of Gnosis, Shams al-Mashrif by Ahmad al-Bunil slowly gained momentum and gathered quite a lot of viewers. So I thought maybe I ought to do another vlog on what is maybe the most famous book about Arab magic in the West. And now, of course, some might argue with me that it's not Ghāyat al Ḥakīm, but the Kitab al-Azif by Abdul al-Harazed, the Mad Arab, or better known as the Necromonicon. However, this is actually a work of fiction by the ever-popular New England writer H.P. Lovecraft. So, Spanish and Latin versions of the Picatrix appeared in the West about the 13th century, and this was almost certainly due to it being translated first of all from Arab to Spanish and then from Spanish to Latin in Castile, rather than, as the myth would have it, that copies were brought to the West during the Crusades. Unfortunately, particularly the Latin version varies very significantly from the original Arabic. And these were the only ones known to Western scholars until Wilhelm Prince discovered an Arabic version around 1920. By the late Middle Ages, the work was very popular throughout Europe, with manuscript copies kept in libraries in Oxford, Paris, Florence and Krakow. The book itself, however, was not as well known in the Muslim world. But at least one of the reasons why I've chosen to discuss it is its contents, as I found, seem to be very much reflected in contemporary Kajawan magical practice. Authorship. The Arab historian Ibn Khaldun, in his Muqaddimah, believed the Picatrix to be written by the astronomer and mathematician Maslama al-Majariti, although this is highly unlikely. Another theory is that in the Islamic world it was attributed to Hippocrates. It's however more likely that it was compiled by numerous authors, including maybe the Andalusian Arab Qasim al-Kutubi. Certainly it's a composite work that synthesizes older works on magic and astrology. According to the prologue, the author researched over 200 works in its creation. There appear to be three significant Near Eastern influences: Jabir ibn Hayyan, the Brethren of Purity, and Ibn Wahasaliy's Nabataean agriculture, thereby providing a link to the Babylonians. It's been described as the most thorough exposition of celestial magic in Arabic, indicating the sources for the work as Arabic texts on Hermeticism, Sabbatism, Islamism, astrology, alchemy, and the magic produced in the Near East in the 9th and 10th centuries. This probably, however, neglects the important contributions from further east, such as India, the Greco-Egyptian tradition, although it does mention Hermeticism, and other Hellenic sources. Contents. Ghāyat al Ḥakīm translates to the aim of the sage, or the goal of the wise. So it's really a composite work on magic and astrology. It's actually divided into 4 books, although these divisions are far from what we would consider systematic in a modern Western sense. Indeed, given the variety of sources, it often contradicts itself. But Book 1 is on the heavens and the effect and causes through images made under them. So it talks about philosophy, Plato, Hermeticism, Talisman and astrology. Book 2 is of the figures of the heavens in general, and of the general motion of the sphere and of the effects in this world. This talks of spirits, Indian magic, the moon, and also talisman again. Book 3 of the properties and planets and signs, and of the figures and forms made in their colours, and how one may speak to the spirits of the planets and their other magical workings. Talks about the zodiac, Islamic astrology, the theory of magic, and Saturn. Book 4 of the properties of spirits and those things that are necessary to observe the most excellent art, and how they may be summoned with images, subfumigations, and other things. So this talks of the soul, it talks about Egyptian magic, science, and poisons. One of the most influential interpretations suggests that it should be regarded as a manual for constructing talismans, mixing compounds, summoning planetary spirits, and determining astrological conditions. So therefore it's seeing it as a grimoire. But I think that certainly if we go back to the Arab original, I think that neglects so much that is of importance within the original Arab version. The Picatrix offers spells to lay waste to a land and drive your neighbours away from that land. I'm going to use the word curse, but it's actually prayer. I'll talk about it later, but it involves using a fluid from a pig's brain to draw figures on a thin lead sheet. And you do this by, on the day and hour of Saturn, with the second face of Capricorn ascending with Saturn standing in it. Place a thin sheet in the place of your desire to be depopulated. The harmful power of Saturn will flow onto it, and it will never be populated for as long as this thin sheet shall stand there. So this is typical of this grimoiric element of the Picatrix, which very much focuses on astrological timing. Now this may seem strange to some Western magicians, but I believe in the power of praying 5 times a day at the prescribed times and within the prescribed direction. Furthermore, if we have a belief in horoscopes, this is simply one interpretation of this astrological timing that the Picatrix focuses on. Certainly, whilst not seeing myself as anything like a ceremonial magician, times and dates are fundamental to my understanding of the workings of the paranormal. The Picatrix has many recipes for poisons and spell ingredients. Some require things like pig sweat, donkey's brains, monkey grease, and even black cat's urine. And here's one. Stretch it out on its stomach over a post. Affix each foot with a nail. Then hit it with a long stick. Little by little it will swell up while getting angry, and will spew forth triple venom with a triple colour. Place a dish under it and catch it. Finally, get rid of the toad. Yes, it was talking about a toad. Lettuce, food and other things are deadly when anointed with this. When you see the venom to ferment in the lead vase, it'll become stronger. If you distill the fermented venom, it'll penetrate more. If you extract the essence from it, it'll be suited to your work. If someone puts a drop in hot water, it'll work wondrously. Nevertheless, one has to say that many of the ingredients may have been more common at the time of writing, and I've heard of modern magicians substituting some of these ingredients for more readily available substances, while other magicians will absolutely insist that you must use the original. But in general, magicians agree that the Picatrix really does work. Certainly, I'm unfortunate in having found that poisons are very much a part of Javanese magic. And indeed, some of them, I was poisoned with lead, in particular lead acetate, seem to mimic the effects and probably enhance the effects of jinn possession. In many respects, these also predate sympathetic magic, as often the talisman illustrate the target of the outcome. Indeed, it's not simply the use of animal parts, but the sacrifice of animals which is discussed in the Picatrix and related to the concept of sympathetic magic, although there's an incredibly complex set of reasons attached to sacrifice, which are too much to go into on this short vlog. The Picatrix describes offering prayers to the planets to get their support in one's ventures. The book notes that each of the planets is more effective in dealing with certain groups of people. You would call on the help of Saturn to help against farmers and fathers, the sun against physicians and philosophers, and the moon against kings and toll-keepers. Mars is described as being a particularly bad planet that creates pain and suffering, the author of all evil things. And the Picatrix offers a long prayer to Mars, which begins, "O Mars, you are the nature of the blazing fire, the author of wars and toils, a crusher of noblemen, and deposer of their offices and ranks, and igniter of fury, ear and wicked will in their hearts of evil men. Now I seek from you to protect and defend me, who is joined with you in all this. You are strong, hot and potent in your works, and do not withdraw from whomever seeks to entreat you. I beg you by all your names, manners, works, motions and paths, present in your sphere, by your light and your power and your domination and rule, that pay attention to me and heed my petition." Indeed, in Kejawen and most Indonesian magic, we talk of prayers rather than spells or curses. And I don't know if they've mutated to these or always were like this, but these prayers are remarkably similar, in fact almost identical in places, to Islamic Dua. One of the most powerful artifacts that can be created they talk about creating in the Picatrix, is a magic mirror. Indeed, it needs to be made with gold or gilded silver, and fashion it seems a very complicated thing to do. Amongst the items you need to make it work are women's hair, from both her comb and her clothes, silk, bramble branches, incense, blood, and your own semen. It also needs the names of 7 stars, 7 angels, and 7 winds described on it. And if it's all done correctly, the power of this mirror is immense. If you gaze into the mirror and guard it well, know that it will bring you will bring together men, winds, spirits, demons, the living and the dead. All shall be obedient to you and heed your command. You will thereby have powers over winds, humans, demons, and you will do what you wish. When you are washed and clean, call them, and they will come to you obediently. Do this above a basin or a clean vessel full of water. There you will behold the fulfillment of what you have sought. And of course, mirrors, but particularly sort of scrying mirrors, black mirrors, are very important to magicians. And when I was visiting the Pura Mangkunegaran, the second royal palace in Solo, I spotted a black Asbidian mirror that I immediately knew was a scrying mirror. Although diplomatically, the guide that was taking me round described them as being used for meditation. And indeed, if you do meditate long enough into one of these mirrors, then it will stare back at you. People assume this to be a demon, but I don't know what it is. But yeah, stare long enough into it. Doesn't have to be a black mirror even. Stare long enough into a mirror and something will stare back at you. But the Picatrix also describes how to draw spirits into an object, such as a statue. In particular, it focuses on statues, although you might have heard me say you can do it with anything, even a McDonald's toy. It devotes a lot of time into the making of various talismans, which is really an extension of this evocation using statues. There's also a discussion on the properties of precious and semi-precious stones. And this is based on my view that they have a consciousness, that the Picatrix calls them a soul, but this is essentially what I've been arguing. Indeed, it talks of seeing people's spirits or faces on stones, or even painting them on stones. And this is a very common practice in Java. People like Semar Messam and Nira Orakedal are often somehow painted on stones. They're always sold as though they occurred naturally, but of course they haven't. A part of the confusion with the modern understanding is because it uses the word characters, which covers a number of different phenomena in modern magic. But in the Middle Ages, they were all called characters. It might refer to a list of incomprehensible signs and astrological symbols in a talisman, talismanic signal, to a series of Latin letters used for magical purposes, and also the written form of verbal incantations or a written charm. So it does actually come very close to the modern concept and use of sigils. Characters were often used in the field of talismanic magic or celestial magic in order to name the spiritual beings. Influence. Well, it had a massive influence on medieval Europe. Of course, it predates somewhat the Renaissance rediscovery of classical knowledge, but could be seen as being a part of that process. And despite being less widely read in the Islamic world, the knowledge contained within it is probably, or it seems to me, is the most important link between the Western magical tradition and the Khajawan that I comment on this channel. I've of course been at pains to try and dispose of the suggestion that Khajawan came out of theosophy, and I think here is proof. I think it's much more linked to a knowledge in the Middle East of the contents of the Picatrix, if not directly of the Picatrix itself. Indeed, it explains so many practices in Khajawan, and even it explains to me the differences between these practices and the Western tradition, so things become much more apparent to me. As I say, it was major influence on medieval Europe. Casanova was arrested for having a copy of it. Ficino, Thomas Campanella, and Henrik Cornelius Agrippa consulted it and borrowed widely from it in their own writings. Some claim that the mere possession of it brings bad luck. There is more recent interest in it as well. Quite a recent translation by John Michael Greer, into English, and Christopher Warnock. I think it was 2015 was published. Now, John Michael Greer is an American druid who I've got an awful lot of time for. If you ever listen to him speaking, he can even make druidry sound interesting or attractive, which is a major outcome for me. It's been argued that the Picatrix anticipates the scientific method of Ibn al-Hafam, but this sort of part of it doesn't appear in the Latin translation. So the scientific method didn't come to the West from the Picatrix. Now, I've argued that one of the justifications for my interest in magic within Islam is that there's no distinction made between magical knowledge and science within Islam, or certainly not within early Islam. And therefore, it's all knowledge. And this is very much how the Picatrix is portrayed. Often the Picatrix will talk in terms of, well, if you wanted to do this, you could do it this way, but of course, as Muslims, we cannot. Now, of course, even in Christian times, even Christian grimoires were written in that way. But it's interesting because it's seeing it as a part of knowledge. Something that will probably surprise you is the Arab version, and it was edited out of the Latin version, contains many positive references to homosexuality. But especially there's some rather unsavoury spells to get young boys to offer themselves to you. But then also, as I say, this was edited out of the Latin edition. There are many references to Al-Quran in it. So going back to my view about magic and Islam, and I've said before that my magic and my Islam are inextricably intertwined and interlinked. And certainly this would appear to be the basis of that. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you'll hear me talk at length about what is permissible and what isn't, and about my daily jihad, whereby I try and establish what is right and what I shouldn't do. So I'm not trying to say it's all right, but what I am saying is that this blanket, it's all haram, it's all sorcery, is a very, very simplistic conception of Islam. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this vlog, and that, not only got something out of it, but provoked thoughts. I'm not here to push my beliefs, my thoughts on you, only to open up your own thinking, get you thinking about the world and life. When I started The Real Magic of Java, I believed that I'd only release them every month or maybe every 2 months. But now I find myself adding to this subsection once or twice a week. But please subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications for when I add new parts to this subsection. In part, the reason why I'm doing it more often is that the concept has moved from filming rituals and events that took place in Java to me also describing my beliefs and philosophy. And that does come in response to people expressing an interest in it. But of course, me actually seeing rituals and events really doesn't happen so often. What I would say to you is that there's no attempt at subterfuge on my behalf. And when I do experience rituals, I will include them for you to see. And as I say, there's no way I'm trying to mislead you. And if I believe there is subterfuge, if I uncover it, I will point it out to you. I'm trying to be as honest as I can be. Now, please make comments, please ask questions, and I'll try to be as honest and open with you as I can be. Of course, there will be some of you who disagree with me, particularly when I talk in terms of my own beliefs, my own feelings. And you're welcome to alternative feelings, and we can agree to disagree. Sometimes I find that people on YouTube can be unnecessarily attacking and aggressive, and at times I don't restrain myself enough, and I apologise, but it's not my intention to put anybody down, I know what I talk about can be emotive, and it can be challenging to your beliefs. But I'd love to enter an open discussion, a heartfelt discussion. But unfortunately, I often come across things that are, especially when people quote the scriptures to me, I've just no idea where it takes us, Because I'm speaking from the heart, sorry, if you want to quote the scriptures at me, do so, but it doesn't have much impact on me, I personally have no desire to impose my feelings on you, and I suppose when people try to do it to me, it washes off, All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share my feelings with you, and I'd love an open discussion on feelings. I really would love it, and sorry if I don't always react as best I should. I try and cure this in myself, but I think this is part of the sort of narcissism of social media that I talk about so much in this subsection. So look, if you've enjoyed it, I really urge you to listen to other sections on this channel, particularly the 4 audio books that I've uploaded onto this channel. Yes, they are in a novel format, they are novels, but they go into much greater depth than my thoughts and feelings. Now, what I would say to you is these are sequential, so my thoughts and feelings develop as we go through each chapter and each book. So it does begin with 1.1, the Chinese cemetery, but hey, it's up to you. Feel free to dip in as you wish, as you want. And really heartfelt thanks for listening to this. And I really want to say a great big thank you, and God bless you.